Go ahead, Mr. Binger.
Mr. Washington, I just have a few follow-up questions to the things you testified about earlier. We saw in the video that there were at least one dumpster at one point that was set on fire on the road. Where did that dumpster come from?
I believe the parking lot of the Ultimate gas station. So there's like a commercial building right next to it, and there's like dumpsters that are typically stationed right there.
May I approach you on it?
Did you ask me a question?
I was just asking if I could set this up again. Is that okay? Thank you. Mr. Washington, do you have that laser pointer still? Okay. Could you point on this map to where you believe those dumpsters were originally located before they were pulled out in the street? So you are indicating the Ultimate gas station on the southeast corner of 60th and Sheridan, and you're pointing along what appears to be the south side of that parking lot next to the Boost Mobile and Check and Go building. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if someone wanted to start a fire in a dumpster and push it towards the gas station, they wouldn't need to pull the dumpster out into the road, would they?
No.
Okay. You indicated that you had a skateboard that night, correct?
Yes, correct.
Did you ever use it as a weapon?
Never.
In your video, it appears there are several other people that had skateboards as well. Is that right?
Yeah.
Did you see a lot of people using skateboards that night to get around?
Yes.
Did you see anyone else using it as a weapon?
No.
Is it fair to say that the folks there that night were primarily using their skateboards like 8-year-old kids do to skate around on?
Yep. Yes.
You were also asked about Mr. Rosenbaum several times, and I want to clarify something because I think there was a little bit of confusion about your perception of Joseph Rosenbaum that night. So let me just ask you, okay? I think you've testified that since that night, you have seen other videos showing Mr. Rosenbaum at various times that night. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And you would agree with me that in your video, he is seen at various times, including at Ultimate Gas.
Yes.
I know it's hard, but I want you to put yourself back in the mindset of that night when you're taking that video.
Sure.
At that time, did you take any notice of Joseph Rosenbaum?
No. From the video that we have, the moments that I saw him, he appeared to be operating like everyone else, maybe.
Could we go to that timestamp that I indicated? I think it was 56, something like that. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me turn on all the monitors again. I think they're so smart they turn themselves on. What I'd like to do is play the portion of the video that shows you leaving Ultimate Gas heading south on Sheridan Road. So I think that's about where we're at in this video. When we start it, if there's changes that need to be made, I'll let you know. So. Keep going one more second, please. Keep going, sorry. I'm sorry, keep going one more second. It's hard to predict. We've already established that the individual that is shown up here is the defendant, Kyle Rittenhouse. And just off the screen to the right, we saw an individual who's been identified as Richie McGinnis. So I'm just reestablishing that for everybody. Can we continue forward now, please?
Further. Definitely need that.
We've already established also that this individual that I'm going to point to is Joseph Rosenbaum. We'll stop there. Would you agree with me, Mr. Washington, that as you pass by the defendant and Joseph Rosenbaum heading south on Sheridan Road, that the sequence of individuals is Mr. Rosenbaum is further south ahead of the defendant, Mr. Rittenhouse?
Correct, yes.
In this photograph, we see a house in the background. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, if you could take a look at the map that is on the easel there. Would you agree with me that in this video the point of view is you are looking west across Sheridan Road?
Yes.
With the laser pointer, can you show us the block on the west side of Sheridan Road that has houses in it? That is the block between 61st and 62nd Street, is that correct?
Yes.
So at this point in the video, would you agree with me that you are on the east side of Sheridan Road, heading south, somewhere in that block between 61st and 62nd Street?
Yes.
Final question I have for you is, you were asked about what Mr. Rosenbaum is wearing on his face, and I think you indicated that his face was obscured by the shirt. Is that right?
Yes.
Were you wearing a mask that night?
Yes, yeah, you could tell by my voice I was muffled the entire night, yeah.
And this was in August of 2020 when there was a lot of COVID going around, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Is it fair to say that a lot of people that night had face coverings?
Yes.
I have nothing further.
Any question?
Just a couple of things.
Go ahead.
So, Mr. Washington, in that picture that you see there, you're not asserting that Mr. Rosenbaum is using that as a COVID mask, are you? That he's wearing a shirt over his face as a COVID mask?
I'm going to object, Your Honor. I think that calls for speculation as to what Mr. Rosenbaum's intent was.
You don't know why he's put that he's wrapped his shirt around his face, do you?
No.
Okay. And you were asked by Attorney Binger in terms of the direction that people are heading, that Mr. Rosenbaum is further south than Mr. Rittenhouse in that picture, right?
Yes.
Okay. You'd agree on that video, it doesn't appear that Mr. Rittenhouse is chasing Mr. Rosenbaum, does it?
No, it doesn't.
It appears they, like multiple other people, are simply walking south. Agreed?
Yes.
Okay. Now,
That's not the picture that we were on TV5.
okay. Judge, I'm approaching the witness with the court's permission. I'm going to ask if you can just identify that picture. That's D36, is that right?
Yes, D36.
Okay, and can you just tell the jury what that appears to be a picture of?
This appears to be a picture of, what is this, a toppled vehicle? No, that's not. That's a fire by some wood, and there's a dumpster here and people around it.
Okay. And if I could just direct your attention to, there's a person there wearing a blue, like a, would you say that's a bandana? Is that fair?
Yeah, that's right. Blue bandana, sure.
No objection to the idea. So if I told you that we agree that that's Joseph Rosenbaum in that picture, okay? So Joseph Rosenbaum at that point is wearing a, you agree, a blue bandana over his face?
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
Yep, yeah.
Judge, I would move 36.
Any objection?
No.
So, Mr. Washington, so this is, that's Mr. Rosenbaum right there, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, some people were covering their faces for protection from COVID using those type of bandanas that night, right?
Yes.
Did you see anybody using their shirt to do the same thing?
Possibly, I'm not sure. Maybe, maybe not. Probably not.
Okay.
I mean, there's other than Joseph Rosenbaum. I assume you're implying, right?
Yeah.
No, maybe, yes. Now that I recall.
Okay. Mr. Washington, thank you for your time, sir.
Any question, Mr.?
No.
You may step down, sir.
The state calls Detective Martin Howard.
Stand, please. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony about to give in this matter be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
You may be seated.
Sir, could you state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Martin Howard, Howard,
How are you currently employed?
the City of Kenosha Police Department,
How long have you been so employed?
a little over 10 years.
What is your current assignment?
Second shift detective,
How long have you been a detective with the Kenosha Police Department?
almost 3 years.
And prior to that, were you a patrol officer?
Yes,
On the night of August 25th, 2020, were you working as a detective for the Kenosha Police Department?
yes.
On that particular night, the night of this incident, what was your initial assignment on duty?
We had various duties. We conducted surveillance on marked squad cars, watching crowds and making reports on them in the radio. We also did things like go to gas stations and make sure all the pumps were shut off,
Why did you do that?
because we were receiving reports that there were people filling up gas containers at local gas stations, and to prevent further arson, we made sure that gas stations were not distributing gas.
Was there a certain time of day when you began that process?
Approximately 6 p.m. I know the curfew was at 8 p.m., so we were trying to make sure it was done before that.
When you were doing the activities you just described, were you operating in an unmarked squad car?
Yes,
Was anyone with you?
yes.
Who was that?
Detective Antaramian?
And that's Detective Ben Antaramian, who's here at council table as well?
Yes.
And other than what you've just previously described, what other duties did you have that night initially?
Another thing we did was take a post out on the interstate, and we had different detectives watching different exits, just to provide a little bit of forward information on influx of crowds coming in and reporting that to command, so they could make better decisions.
Was that one of the things you personally did?
Yes.
Do you remember approximately where it was that you went out there to check on the interstate?
I spent time at different exits on I-94.
Did you see anything unusual?
There were some cars coming.
And were they ones that you felt necessary to report on?
Yeah, there were several different times while this was going on that we would make a report of a larger group of cars coming in seemingly together.
Why did that concern you?
Well, if you saw an influx of cars with license plates removed, that was a telltale sign for us that they may not be coming to Kenosha to conduct regular business.
Was there a time that particular night in which any of the off-ramps from the interstate into Kenosha were closed?
Yes.
Do you know approximately when that was?
I believe that started on Monday the 24th.
And do you remember what time of day?
Later on in the afternoon.
Okay. And was that something that was also in effect on Tuesday night?
Yes.
And you indicated the curfew was at 8 p.m. that night?
Yes.
What part of Kenosha did that affect?
The city of Kenosha.
What did that curfew technically mean for citizens of Kenosha?
That meant for everybody to stay home.
Not be out on the streets, driving
Yes.
around, going to the store, walking around,
Yes.
things like that? What about if you wanted to stay on your own personal property? Was that allowed?
Yes.
What about if you wanted to be on your business property? Would that be allowed?
Yes.
So, in addition to what you've already described, patrolling the exits, gas stations, doing a little bit of surveillance and things, were there any other responsibilities that you had that night before the events that we're going to talk about here started?
Yeah, there were several others. Another thing we would do is we were receiving a lot of reports, 911 calls of different things going on. A lot of these calls were unfounded, but we still, every 911 call we get, we still have to check it out and make sure that things are safe there. So we would respond to locations where incidents were reported to see if something was going on. And if something was going on, we would verify that and do what we could.
Is it fair to say that on this particular Tuesday night, you and most of the rest of the Kenosha Police Department was out there in full response to issues going on in our community?
It depended on the issue.
But it wouldn't be normal for you as a detective to go to gas stations or the interstate exits or things like that?
No, a typical day for me is I'm in the Detective Bureau conducting follow-up investigations, occasionally going out and talking to witnesses, gathering surveillance footage, that sort of thing, but mainly on a normal day I'm in the Detective Bureau.
Now, did there come a time in that evening when your assignment changed?
Yes,
When approximately was that?
just before midnight.
And can you tell us more about that?
There was a report of a shooting in the area of 60th and 63rd in Sheridan, and at that time, we initially got a report that there were 4 homicide victims.
And that was a report you personally received?
Yes.
And as a result of that, did your assignment that evening change?
Yes, at approximately 12:30, Detective Vance Raymond and I were assigned to investigate this case.
And since that time, 12:30 a.m. on August 26th, the
Yep.
following morning, have you and Detective Vance Raymond been the primary lead detectives on this case?
Yes.
And can you tell us a little bit about what you have done personally in the course of that investigation?
One of the main things I did was go over the internet and try to find as many videos as I could of this incident. There were a lot of videos on social media, so I do Twitter searches for Kenosha and find videos that contain the incident and save those. There were also Facebook live streams like Mr. Washington's that we just saw. I was able to locate that and save that from Facebook. And there were several other locations that videos were found. Some private citizens came forward with video. We gathered those.
Now, you said that about 12:30 in the morning on the night of August 25th, early morning. Oh, sir.
Apparently the lunch has been delivered early, and some of it's warm, I think, so that I don't know if the jurors want to have warm, soggy, or cool, soggy sandwiches. So let's break a little early for lunch, and please don't talk about the case during the break. Let me ask that you return at about 10 after 12. Is that